Hi, my name is Brittany Bryant, and I am a student at Liberty University. This is my presentation on Burrhus Frederick Skinner, more commonly known as B.F. Skinner. After graduating from Hamilton College, Skinner chose to pursue a career in journalism. But after about a year, he realized that he wasn't doing very well in journalism, and he enrolled in Harvard University. There, he studied psychology, and he eventually earned his PhD in psychology. After graduating, he quickly became a very well-known American psychologist. He's most recognized for his work and contribution to the field of behaviorism. In the late 1930s, he developed a concept known as operant conditioning, which is the way an individual's behavior can be shaped and modified based on consequences. Initially, this approach was applied to animals such as rats and pigeons, but was later applied on humans and then more in the field of education. The idea behind operant conditioning is that behavior can be modified based on the resulting consequences. So, behaviors that are followed by pleasant consequences are behaviors that are repeated and eventually learned. But behaviors that are followed by unpleasant consequences are behaviors that are not often repeated and therefore they're never learned. Skinner believed because of this idea, because of this concept, undesirable behaviors could be reshaped and modified into desirable behaviors. And this idea was the driving force behind behavior modification and programmed learning, which are also concepts that were developed by Skinner. Behavior modification is used in behavior therapy to help individuals with OCD, ADHD, anxiety, depression, or any other behavioral issues. While there are several ways to modify behavior, in the field of education, teachers most often use positive reinforcement. With positive reinforcement, the individual student is given a wanted or a pleasant reward for their behavior. An example of this would be rewarding the student with a piece of chocolate for completing their classwork on time. For younger students, it could be as simple as positive praise for staying seated and being seated and attentive through an entire story time. Skinner himself was a huge advocate for positive reinforcement, and he believed that students learned more with positive reinforcement. He argued that when negative reinforcement was applied, students were not likely to learn, that they were more apt to learn how to avoid the negative reinforcer than what was being taught. Skinner also believed that program learning was an effective and efficient way for educating students. He believed that students learn best when they are taught in small steps that, when correctly completed, were immediately rewarded. He argued that while teachers are important, programmed learning is best implemented when taught by machines. Teaching machines were just early computers. These machines were able to provide each student with a task that's broken down into a very small, easily achievable step. After the correct completion of each step, students were immediately rewarded and allowed to move on to the next step. Skinner argued that immediate rewarding reinforced the behaviors which increased the likelihood of reoccurrence. Skinner also argued that this benefited students because they were able to progress at their own pace and they were not having to compare themselves to other students. While the benefits of behaviorism can be noted, for me it's the extreme radical approach of Skinner that draws criticism. Not only does he reduce human nature to something that is merely influenced by the environment, but he also rejects the importance of individual freedom and an individual's ability to determine their own behavior. Skinner has also received heavy criticism from others for his defense of his utopian society in his novel Walden 2. He insinuated that there are some individuals in society that, in order to ensure human survival, should decide how to best condition others. This is an extreme use of behavior modification and begs the question, who will control the controllers?